Hey everyone, Dan Weintraub here. You can visit me at danweintraubcoaching.com, or you can visit me on Amazon. Pick up my books there, all about neuro-hacking and neuro-coaching. So I want to read you a brief excerpt from a piece about boredom that just came out this past Saturday by an author named Miri Kim. And then I want to talk to you about the neurophysiology of boredom, because we tend to approach things from the psychological perspective, and that is a huge error. We should be looking at the physiological experience, our nervous systems, neurotransmitters, hormones, etc. That is where we lead. We don't lead with psychology, we lead with physiology. And here's what Miri Kim writes. In 2014, psychologists at the University of Virginia conducted a simple experiment to showcase the power of the human mind. They placed subjects in a room by themselves with no distractions for roughly 10 minutes, letting them be alone with their thoughts. Given the infinite possibilities that our imaginations hold, it aimed to promote the sheer pleasures we can derive from just thinking. Aaron Westgate wrote, "We thought it would be great. People are so busy that it would give them a chance to slow down, sit quietly, and daydream." And what she ended up finding was that it was a failure. That was the language that's used in the article. It turned out that people hated it. They found the experience so unpleasant, many of them preferred physical pain over the discomfort of boredom. By the way, physical pain releases a natural opioid peptides in our body. So we have to understand that sometimes pain actually is pleasurable because of the endorphins, the physiological responses of our bodies. When given the opportunity to self-administer a mild electric shock with a button, 67% of men and 25% of women, big surprise, pressed it at least once to help pass the time. One miserable person, she writes, shocked himself an incredible 190 times. So again, let's come back to this place where we should be looking at these things from a physiological perspective and not from a psychological perspective. We lead with physiology. So what is boredom, or what is ambivalence physiologically? It's the lack of, to a great extent, the neurotransmitters and hormones that electrify us. It's a lack of adrenaline. It's a lack of noradrenaline or norepinephrine, which oftentimes is referred to as the focus hormone or the focus neurotransmitter. Many people would liken noradrenaline in some ways to the drugs that are taken for ADHD. When we lack that stimulation, and especially in this day and age where most of us are habituated to an experience that's adrenal-centered or that's cortisol-centered or that's noradrenal-centered, when we are lacking that stimulation in our bodies, we try to go out and find it. And we end up trying to find it, oftentimes unconsciously, in many self-destructive ways. Why is it that 100,000 people will go to a football game and scream terrible things at the opponents and at fans of the other team for that physiological experience? It alleviates what we call boredom. But what boredom really is simply lack of access to the neurophysiological experience to which we are habituated. That's something that we should be paying attention to. As a practitioner of neuro-coaching and as a personal practitioner of neuro-hacking, I don't use substances to neurohack, though occasionally I have an extra cup of coffee because that keeps the dopamine receptors open, or maybe a little bit of sugar to stimulate a little shot of dopamine. And there's nothing wrong with, using antidepressants or other chemicals in order to manipulate our neurotransmitters and our hormones and our nervous systems, but we are habituated to a state of being, and when we are not in that state of being, and in this world of social media and in this existence in which we are moving from one thing to the next, we become very dysregulated, which we call oftentimes boredom. We call it ambivalence. We become very dysregulated when we don't have that sensation in our body that's based upon adrenaline, cortisol, and noradrenaline, generally speaking, and predominantly. So it makes total sense, for example, that people would latch onto conspiracy theories and would go to web pages that reinforce their conspiracy theories, such as anti-vaccine conspiracy theories. It makes total sense that people would latch onto those ideas and believe in them tenaciously and read about them and write about them, because it creates an internal experience that is noradrenal and adrenal focused, not serotonin focused. It's not really a well-being experience, though there is the hits of dopamine that people get when people are reinforcing their worldview. This is physiology. Neurophysiology teaches us that what we are experiencing when we are bored is we are experiencing neurophysiological dysregulation. In my coaching practice, what I help individuals do is develop a series of daily practices, simple, from going for walks to taking up smoking a tobacco pipe to aromatherapies, different aromatherapies. I provide, after a series of meetings and analysis, I provide a series of prescriptions aimed at gently nudging us away from one way of moving through the world neurophysiologically and more toward another way of moving through the world neurophysiologically. So when you're feeling bored or when you're feeling ambivalent, recognize this as a physiological experience, not as a psychological experience. Recognize that you are neurophysiologically dysregulated, and that oftentimes, in an attempt to become regulated, you're going to engage in activities and behaviors to which you are habituated. That's what busyholics do, workaholics, right? They are habituated to a sense of stimulation, noradrenal and adrenal focused, even cortisol focused. And so it becomes their safe place, their comfort place. And that's why meditation practice can be so hard for people, because sitting still oftentimes means that they have to look inside, and there's this, again, meaning making psychologically, there's this void. But what's really just happening is that you're accessing a new set of neurophysiological experiences, and it takes some getting used to. So that's it for today. Boredom 101. Again, Dan Weintraub here. You can visit my website, danweintraubcoaching.com. And please feel free to go to Amazon, pick up some of my books, kind of interesting stuff. And you can always contact me. I have an active coaching practice. It's very finite in time, 5 to 6 meetings. It's not ongoing therapy. And I can help you develop practices that can nudge you away from your habituated and reified stances with regard to the way you move through the world. Okay, thanks for visiting. Bye.